We're here with Terence Lester from Love Beyond Walls.
Yep.
And I'm excited because I happen to be following this organization since the very start, and glad to have you here. What was the driving motivation to start Love Beyond Walls?
There are three parts to that answer. Firstly, it's a personal journey because, I too myself have experienced homelessness in some forms in my earlier life, like coming up, childhood, and stuff like that. And I remember the pain of it all, and not being able to like fully articulate the experience itself because I was so young. Like I remember when I was a teenager, like living from place to place and even like in parks and stuff, and going to school and not really having some of my teachers understand like the social backdrop of who I was as a person. All they were judging was basically like my behaviors, my disconnecting with the lesson, or me not turning in assignments, but not really understanding the context of me as a person. And that pain part within itself speaks to the vulnerability of individuals, not just myself, but individuals wrestling with the plight within itself. Like, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know the person's story. And I had this passion to not just be somebody who has gone through it and overcome it, but to really validate the stories that are forgotten. There are so many people like who end up in the plight from different places. Like, different journeys have led them there, and I kind of get tired of hearing like the generalizations of poverty or the generalizations of the experience of homelessness. I think in our country we have really become accustomed to like putting people in buckets, or like they're lazy, or they have a mental issue, or they don't want to work, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, no, you can't say that and then lump a group of people into the category without first understanding the context of what has gotten them there, because everybody's story is different and unique. And there's a narrative that is silenced because of bias and judgment, and just being in a world or country that focuses so much on like the external things, like the wealth, the glitz, the glamour, the fame, and all that stuff. And then thirdly, it's just wanting to, create more empathy in the world. Social media within itself has like created, heightened self-gratification. Like, people focus on themselves so much. It's funny because me and my wife joke sometimes when we look at pages and like you scroll the pages, no variation, there's just a bunch of selfies. And it's like, we live in a selfie world where we communicate, focus on yourself 24/7. And we forget that we are also in a world that is diverse, it's dense, and we are around other people. And so I'm inspired to like, push people to live outside of themselves. The houses, you can't take it with you. The cars, you can't take it with you. The income, you can't take it with you. Like, what is your purpose for being here? How do you make the world better? Some of the things that it does translate, what relationships did you cultivate? How did you impact the young man who was fatherless, and inspiring him to live outside of himself and even like strive to go beyond the environment that he's grown up in? Like, who did you feed that was hungry? Who did you visit, that was lonely? For me, it's living a life modeled after Jesus, that's full of generosity and sacrifice. So, yeah.
Amen. As you're talking about that, I'm thinking just the questions that, well, like oh gosh, this is so terrible. I don't remember what book of the Bible it is. It's in Matthew where Jesus said, you know, I was thirsty, I was hungry, you
Yeah, it's Matthew 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was in Matthew. I'm just like, is it 7? No, it's not.
No, yeah.
But yeah, as you're talking, that's what came to mind, that body of scripture, because he could have said, you know, lots of other things, but he said, you know, when I was in prison, you visited me. When I was, you know, hungry, you fed me. So
yeah,
it kind of puts into perspective, like, the things that really matter.
Yeah.
Things that are important. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love that passage too, man, because like there are two groups of people, right? He says that phraseology, and then the response of the first group is like, Lord, when did we do that? And then he gives the explanation: when you fed the poor, when you clothed the naked, when you visited those who were in prison and lonely, you know. And that first group I love because, well, the group that rises to the top of me, I love because it was so embedded in their normal lifestyle that they didn't even focus on when did they do it or not. They were just doing it all the time. So, you know, the guy was like, yo, like, I have to, you know, make you aware of the good that you're doing to glorify me. And then the other group was so self-absorbed that they didn't even know they weren't doing something. You know, it's just like, you know, letting them know where they had been missing the mark. And I want to identify with a group that is making service so a part of my lifestyle that I'm just doing it. It's just a part of who I am because I, you know, am wanting to glorify God, obviously, but wanting to like be light in a world that has a lot of darkness and division and stuff like that. Yeah.